Good evening. This is the January 10th, 2012 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. The meeting will now come to order. First item on the agenda are meeting minutes for December 13th, 2011. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Commissioner Barrett has moved to approve. Commissioner Jacobs, second. I know we have one addition to the minutes. The minutes should reflect the presence of Commissioner Jacobson at the meeting. Are there any other additions, corrections, or deletions?
Who gets to vote on the minutes?
On the minutes, it would be everyone who, let me see if I can take a look at them.
No, Sally would have to vote on the minutes.
Yes, Sally, you are on. I
Yeah,
know,
for the
on
minutes,
Mark
that's
wasn't
what
here.
I assumed,
Mark was-
did
So
not,
you'd be on for voting for the minutes, Sally.
not for anything else.
So I'll abstain from vote on the minutes. I arrived at the meeting.
They indicate you're later
for the
arrival.
organizational meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. With the meeting as changed to indicate Attorney Jacobson's presence, all in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and we have one abstention, Commissioner Wagner. Next item, Bills and Communications, 1610, 1654 North Benson Road, request of Attorney Miller for a 90-day extension for recording a final subdivision map. This is the first extension request.
Yeah, if you remember, this was an application that basically, seven-lot application was approved. The approval was published October 14th, 2011. This would be the first of two possible extensions to file the map.
Thank you. And on this right now are the regular commissioners and Commissioner Valera until Commissioner Kennelly arrives. Is there a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the extension.
Thank you.
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Barrett has moved to approve the extension. Commissioner Suter has second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the extension requested signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The extension is approved unanimously. Next item, new applications to refer to public hearing. The first, 176, 186 Linwood Avenue. Special exception application of Honda of Westport Incorporated to establish an automobile service facility in a design industrial district.
Yes, this is a special, would be a special exception application for an automotive service facility in our design industrial district zone. If you, as you remember, June 2011, Honda Westport made a similar application. There was a public hearing held on August 23rd, and on September 13th, the commission denied the application. That application is currently under appeal. What we have here now is a revised plan. Basically, the revision is, if you remember, there were, I believe, 33 service bays. The current application is proposing 26. That is essentially the, I think we sent you a copy of the letter of intent, but that is essentially the difference. So really, your decision at this point is that if you feel that this change is substantial, or the change is enough that you would consider reviewing it, you could do that. If you don't think the change is substantial, any application that has been acted on you, acted by you, does not have to be re-reviewed if it's similar for a 6-month period. So that's essentially the decision you're making, whether or not to accept this and hear it. Again, determining that basically the change is enough that you feel it's appropriate to reconsider.
Thanks.
Not that you would deny it, but just that there's a substantial enough change.
Correct. Commissioner Suter?
Or
Yeah, I remember this application pretty well. There were either 33 or 36 proposed bays, I forget how many, and we were concerned about the large number of bays for that location and the traffic that it might generate, particularly at that intersection, Linwood with North Pine Creek Road. And there were some other issues too, and I cannot remember all of them. I think some had to do with the dual use of the building. There may have been some, it is an industrial zone, but there's also residential housing right in the zone. So there was a complicated mix of issues, and perhaps some of the other commissioners could weigh in on that. I think we should have a better feel for the application before we reconsider.
Commissioner Barrett?
So do we need a motion?
We need a motion. If this is going to be approved, someone has to make a motion. Or at least
I
to
was just
discuss,
gonna
we need a
talk, I
motion.
wasn't
We
gonna-
somebody should make a motion before we talk about it,
Right.
practically, one way or the
And
other.
again, remember, it's the motion to send it to public hearing.
Correct.
I'll make the motion to send it to public hearing.
Been moved, and
I'll second.
Commissioner Barrett's a second. Commissioner Barrett's?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually not sure I want to send it to public hearing, but I do want to discuss it. I voted in the I voted for this application. I remember it was denied 4-3, and there were a lot of concerns over traffic and the amount of bays. I remember Mr. Kennelly, was very concerned about the number of bays relative. I'm not sure this is that appreciably different. 33, 26, still seems like a lot. Also, it's under appeal. These applicants, they appeal our decisions, and, I support all the decisions of the commission. Whether I voted for it or not, it doesn't matter. The commission decided to deny it, yet they're appealing it, but now they want us to take our time and hear another application. So I don't know that I'd be inclined to do this any sooner than we need to.
Commissioner?
Just one qualification on that. Even if you recommend against hearing it initially, 6 months from now, you would have to hear it. Now, I don't know
I understand.
if there would be a decision at the time on the court case, but that just, basically, you're delaying it 6 months.
Yeah, from 9/13, so we'll be delaying it till March 13th.
Correct.
Right, okay. Those are my thoughts, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion by any, Commissioner Jacobs?
I would agree with Commissioner Barrett. I don't know that it's a considerable change in their application, and we just got done hearing it not long ago. So I would wait the 6 months.
Is there any further discussion by any commissioner? Hearing none, all in favor of sending to public hearing 176, 186 Linwood Avenue, special exception application of Honda Westport, Inc., to establish an automobile service facility, signify by saying yes.
What you're voting on too, just because of a time issue, is that this application, whether or not it's substantially, the change is substantial enough to merit receiving it as a public hearing.
Correct.
Because if you don't, then, of course, you're protected by the statutes as far as any timing issues once we receive it. So,
Correct.
Again, just to qualify, it'll read in the minutes that this action is whether or not you consider this a substantial enough change to hear the hearing, hear the public hearing.
Correct.
So an affirmative vote is what? What's the motion then that we're voting
The
on?
motion was to recommend to public hearing. So by voting yes, you believe it is a substantial enough change that it should go to public hearing.
Okay.
And a negative vote would keep it from public hearing effectively for a 6-month period, or 6 months from the last application.
Because the finding would be that the change in the number of bays was not a significant enough change to merit a public hearing.
Or accepting it prior to the 6-month period. The
Prior.
statute basically says you deny any application, you do not have to rehear a similar application for 6-month period.
Got it.
That being said, all in favor of recommending to public hearing 176, 186 Linwood Avenue, special exception application of Honda Westport, Inc., to establish an automobile service facility, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
And abstentions, so it's 1 in favor, the remaining opposed, no abstentions. Next item, zoning regulation amendment, an application of Garden Homes Management Corp. to amend sections 10.6.13, 10.7.1, 10.10.10, 10.17.3, 28.6.1, and 31.2.42 of the zoning regulations with respect to a proposed small unit enhanced set-aside development.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, also what you should realize is B, C, and D are basically all the same application.
That's correct, all for the 134 Chatham Avenue
Just portions
property.
of it. Yeah, just really quick, and I don't know if we sent you this, but I'll give you the definition of what a small unit enhanced set-aside development is. Developments of dwelling units, A, consisting of only studio and one-bedroom units, B, conforming to the requirements of a set-aside development as defined in Section 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes, and C, additionally providing not less than 15% of the dwelling units are affordable to persons and families earning less than or equal to 50% of the median income, and additionally providing not less than 5% of the dwelling units as affordable to persons and families earning less than or equal to 30% of the median income. All affordable units shall be subject to the standards contained in Section 8-30G. We were familiar with this before. I think most of you understand the nuance as far as reviewing this under that section, or at least the affordable portion of this application. So that's basically what you're looking at. It's a multifamily, basically a 50, I believe 54 unit, yes, 54 unit residential development with, that would meet the requirements of 8-30G of the state statutes.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to move to public hearing.
Commissioner Jacobson's moved to public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Jacobs has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of sending to public hearing zoning regulation amendment, application of Garden Homes Management Corp. to amend sections 10.6.13, 10.7.1, 10.10.10, 10.17.3, 28.6.1, and 31.2.42 of the zoning regulations with respect to a proposed small unit enhanced set-aside development, signified by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Item carries unanimously. Next item, 130 Fairchild Avenue, zone change application of Garden Homes Management Corp. to establish a designed residence district on land presently zoned in Residence B.
It's the same application, so you might just,
Correct.
my comments are the same.
Same comments, thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we consider C and D together.
Thank you. There's been a motion to consider items C and D together. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Barrett has seconded. Motion is to consider C and D, 130 Fairchild Avenue zone change application of Garden Homes, along with 130 Fairchild Avenue special permit and coastal site plan application of Garden Homes Management Corp. pertaining to a 54-unit residential building in a Residence B zone. Is there any discussion on considering those items together? And this is a vote just to consider them together, not on the merits of the items, but to consider
Correct.
them together. Hearing none, all in favor of considering items C and D together signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Now, in consideration of C and D together, is there a motion regarding those items as consolidated?
Motion to move for public hearing.
Commissioner Wagner's moved for public hearing. Commissioner Jacobs has seconded. Is there any discussion? Same staff comments should be incorporated. Hearing none, all in favor of moving items C and D, 130 Fairchild Avenue, zone change application to establish a design residence district on land presently zoned Residence B, and special permit and coastal site plan application of Garden Homes Management Corp. pertaining to a 54-unit residential building, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next item, 85 Mill Plain Road, zoning compliance application of 85 Pond Mill LLC pertaining to a revised restaurant proposal with request for reduced parking in a design industrial district.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, there was an approval, or there is an approval for a restaurant at this location for basically for 3,600 square feet of space with 1,800 square feet of patron area. That particular application was approved with you reducing the ratio of parking to establish that use requiring 30 parking spaces. What this new group wants to do is essentially utilize that space but expand it into some mezzanine areas, and essentially the area of the restaurant would expand to 4,288 square feet, and the patron area would expand to 2,505 square feet. What this request is, and again, it would require a public hearing based on our regulations, is that use, that expansion would fall under the same ratio that you approved for the original approval of this location for a restaurant. So in a sense, what that would do is that additional space would require 12 additional parking spaces, which are available on the site. And that's really what the request is about. Again, our regulations, as you know, permit you to make this judgment subject to having a public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item? And for the record, I would like Commissioner Kennelly is joining us. And Commissioner Kennelly, we're on 85 Mill Plain Road under item 2, new applications to refer to public hearing E.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson has moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Suter has seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item carries unanimously. One item under old business, 2221 Cross Highway, Wellington Drive. Re-subdivision application of Luis and Darren Antel for 2 lots in a AAA zone. Public hearing was November 15, 2011. Expiration date is January 19th, 2012. The people on this are as follows: Leclerc, Barretts, Kennelly, Suter, and Wagner. Commissioner Valera is on, who was present for Commissioner Jacobs, who was not, and you did not listen to the tapes, correct?
I did, but I'm not going to sit on it.
Okay, thank you.
The tapes were not that clear.
Okay. And Commissioner Parker is on for Commissioner Owens, as we're short one commissioner, since Commissioner Owens is no longer on the commission. So again, everyone except Commissioner Alessi is on for this one,
And
and
on-
Commissioner Jacobs. And Commissioner Jacobson is not on because she was not a member of the commission at that time. So again, we have Commissioners Leclerc, Barretts, Kennelly, Suter, Wagner, Parker, and Valera. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner, for approval?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Parker has moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Barretts has seconded.
Yeah, again, just to refresh your memory, it was a little bit, a while ago, we held a hearing. If you remember, this property is basically part of original Stone Ridge subdivision that was approved 7/27/76. Also, as represented at the hearing, to bring the property to the appropriate size, there was a lot line revision map filed on September 15, 2011, as was discussed and outlined at the hearing. There was some brief public comment. Adjacent property owner was concerned about access, utility issues. To cut to the chase on that, first of all, he requested, or he wanted to know if underground utilities are required. Well, the answer to that, as you know, is yes, as per our regulations, and actually the utilities are underground there now. The other issue he brought up had to do with construction traffic, and if there was any damage done to his right-of-way or to the right-of-way that they both have used, that it would be repaired. I can report to you that there is an agreement between that property owner and this applicant that, in fact, first of all, that not only would the underground utilities be required, but also any damage at all done to the mutual access would be repaired at the time of the completion of the improvement. So that was an issue that was brought up at the hearing. The other thing is, if in fact you determine to approve this application, one of the things we'll recommend, if you remember, there was some discussion, some confusion about the location or whether or not a garage was going to remain. The bottom line is it cannot. So if you were to ask to approve this, the staff would recommend that there would be a condition of approval of that, not only that there would be a revised map showing that garage not there, but that the garage would have to be removed prior to the map being filed or the subdivision being approved.
Mr. Jovanchik, I had a note in my handwriting here that not only the garage, but the shed would have to be removed
Yes,
as well. Is that
yes.
correct?
So I would strongly recommend, if you were so inclined, that you condition that action.
Thank you.
Just have one more comment, then,
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing I'll remind you too is, as you know, the open space requirements for this, because of the size of the property, what we did is we took payment in lieu, and that, at the end of the day, based on our assessor information, would be $25,000. So they're not only, if this is approved, the town would also receive as payment in lieu for subdivision $25,000. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I just have a question for Mr. Bonchak.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have the plans here, but as I recall, there were three outbuildings shown on the map. And it looked like two of them were garages and one was a shed. Were they proposing to build a new garage?
No.
No, it's relocation.
What was the third outbuilding?
Thank you.
It looks like
It was a relocation of the existing.
Right, there was one that they were going to move, and the other two need to be taken away
That's the
altogether.
confusing
Okay,
word.
so one of them was the proposed new location, but now it's just going to be torn down.
Well, it's within the setback there, so any new construction would have to be inside the setback.
Right.
But the bottom line is, you would, as part of your condition of approval, is not only that you would have a revised map showing that,
Right.
but that that map could not be filed unless the existing shed and garage are removed.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Commissioner Parker, I'd recommend maybe a couple of amendments you make to your motion. The first being the demolition of the shed in the garage.
Okay.
As discussed. Number 2, the conditions set forth by engineering in their October 4th, 2011 memorandum as revised, if applicable, in their November 15th, 2011 memorandum. And third, the payment in lieu that was discussed.
Okay, I also had a comment before
Is there gonna be
before I
another
do that, which
condition?
was simply that I also remember the other neighbor worried about the drainage on the new driveway going in from Wellington Drive.
Mm-hmm.
That was another comment, and I don't know.
Just for the record, that's a condition number 3 of
Is
engineering,
it?
November
Okay.
15. The proposed driveway to lot 19B should be graded to drain towards the proposed catch basin. Detention is now shown for the proposed driveway coming in off Wellington Drive as requested in my previous comment. All runoff from the proposed driveway should be contained within the property lines and directed into the on-site detention system.
So that
That's
is
what you're
covered.
referring to.
All
It
right,
appears to be.
then, okay, so then we're,
So would you incorporate those 3 conditions I set forth?
Yes, please.
Into your motion? Does the second wish to incorporate those?
Yes.
Commissioner Barris has indicated that he so incorporated those. Is there any discussion by any member of the commission on this application? Hearing none, all in favor of this application, 2221 Cross Highway Wellington Drive re-subdivision application of Louise and Darren Antel for 2 lots in a AAA zone, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Carries unanimously. Next item, we have one compliance. 2315 Black Rock Turnpike application of Michael Cusato, AIA, for facade improvements to an existing restaurant in the designed commercial zone, this being the Duchess Restaurant on Black Rock Turnpike.
Yes, if what I passed out to you prior to the meeting starting is basically the existing photos of the building that's being renovated. And to give you some kind of, if you look at the center picture existing, and then you go to the second design proposal on the, I believe the stuff that Jim sent you, that essentially shows you, it's the best view that shows you what the improvement's going to be. It's essentially removing the gambrel roof that's there now and replacing it with what you see. And let me give you the specifics of that. I don't know if Jim sent this to you. But it's a new roof gable, dormer structure, and overhangs to replace the existing. New support columns under existing roof overhang footprint, as you can see is represented on that second picture. Replacement of entry and exit vestibules and railings. A new sign, they're taking off the sign that's on top of that gable, and they're putting the one that you see in the representation. Is proposed as part of this renovation. New interior finish, millwork, lighting and such. There's no work scheduled for the kitchen, and the vehicular use and pedestrian environment is to remain unchanged. So essentially what you have is a facade renovation. The building itself gets no larger, and I think, like I said, the best I can explain to you as far as what it's going to look like or what the changes encompass, if you look at that center picture of existing and the second picture down, I think that gives you the best representation. Although you can look around, if you look at the top, you can see where the third representation kind of gives you an idea of what it would look like. So that's basically what it is. It's facade renovation as represented by their plans.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve it.
Commissioner Barris has moved to approve. Is there a second? Commissioner Jacobson is seconded. Any discussion?
I mean, what I can see is just a facade improvement, and from the visuals, it looks a lot better. It looks like it'll be much updated, so I don't really see any issues with it, apparently, from these plans.
Mr. Suter?
Yeah, I think it looks like the latest in a number of renovations for retail locations in the Black Rock area. And it's certainly an improvement. I think we should approve it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll
Commissioner
just,
Jacobs?
I'm not feeling incredibly strong either way, but it is a change in height. We are really changing a mass here because we're going from 16.3 feet to 23 feet. So they're gaining a lot of mass, they're gaining a lot of physical presence without gaining any usable space. Now, the next question would be, is that considered a second floor because it has dormers, and is this part of a sign plan at this time, and is that a second-story sign?
Yeah, no, it's not considered second story. It's an open, it's open to this, to the roof.
So even though they're putting dormers to make it look like a second story,
It's an architectural feature.
So they are raising the suspended ceiling or the interior ceiling all the way up to the roof on this?
Correct. There's no addition, to my, best of my knowledge, there's no additional storage, no additional usable space proposed as this renovation, for this renovation. If you look at the top representation, you'll see that it doesn't go up, the whole roof doesn't raise. It's only the front portion that faces toward Black Rock Turnpike.
I'm not sure it's an open. They have a drawing, I'm not seeing a drawing showing that in fact it's going to have, unless I'm missing it, a cathedral ceiling. Because that front section where the sign is, isn't the length of the entire building. It's only on the front portion.
What I'm saying, this representation will show that it really doesn't go that far back. It really is just a architectural.
And that's the point. The point being, as Commissioner Jacobs is recognizing, by making a peak in the front of your building
Yep.
and calling it part of the building, you're putting a second-story sign that we don't allow. Is this a way to go
Well,
around the
that's what it,
regulations?
well, just, I mean, understand what you're
I
getting.
think that's what he's-
Right, I mean, what you're getting, Mr. Chairman, I mean, is you're getting, you're getting massing, increased massing there. Now, I've driven there, I don't live far from there, and you can miss Duchess actually very easily if you're running by. So as a proprietor, I certainly would like, if I were the proprietor, I'd want to have a presence on Black Rock Turnpike that was more noticeable. The question is, for the commission, I suppose, is how comfortable are we in an area that, transitions very quickly in that area to residential, to massing that, is fairly significant. I mean, I don't know how successful this was, but I know it's been done down at the other end of Black Rock Turnpike, if you look where the Tunxus Hill Shopping Center is. And that has given that little mini mall there, that strip mall, a little bit more of a physical presence. It does bump it up a bit in terms of you're noticing it from the road. The only thing I just wonder is does anyone have any concerns about the issue of the transition? It's pretty clear that now your sign is going to be about, the sign right now is in the middle of this brown roof. It's going to be well above that. I mean, if you can't see Richard's drawing, it's going to be in the center of that triangle. So it's going to be a good 7 or 8 feet higher. But that's really it. I mean, the building's going to be more massive there, and it's going to be basically a couple, stone's throw from where, houses start.
I think my only concern was that we're starting a precedent here, allowing second-story signs, or allowing people to design.
Well, that's
things
what you're
that are
getting, is what I'm saying.
Second stories, without getting an appropriate.
Well, what you do is more and more your buildings, your architecture becomes your sign. You know what I'm saying? It increases your presence on on Black Rock. And the question is do you want that in that end of town?
Could I ask a question? Just if you were going to move ahead, if you felt the architectural change is appropriate and an improvement, if they were to drop the sign down onto the roof as the existing one is, does that make it any better for you? I mean, basically keep the existing sign.
Commissioner Sutter?
Yeah, I don't see really what the conflict is. I mean, the existing sign is technically on the second story, it's more than 10 feet off the ground. It's just that the building that it now sits on is slightly shorter than the proposed building. I don't know what the actual heights of the comparable structures are, but I don't think the new one is that much taller in actuality than the old one. And in fact, the spreading out of the supports creates a more horizontal effect to all set, whatever height it is. I still think it's a good design.
Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, I recall, this building was built, I would say, probably about 1982 or 83, something like that. So it's a dated building.
Oh, it is.
I think this is incorporating more, not that modern is necessarily better, but a lot of these types of establishments have really transitioned. I've seen some Dunkin' Donuts, that, you know, beautiful buildings now, and I remember them back in the 70s, they were just kind of, you know, these boxy things, glass and all that. So I kind of like the architecture. I'm not sure about the concern that about massing, if the massing doesn't, you know, give them more floor space and doesn't take away any parking spaces, so it's really just visual there.
Right, that's what I'm
It could
saying,
be
but I mean, but
aesthetically
there is an
good.
issue, and I hear you absolutely, I agree, that we're not dealing with issues related to parking, we're not dealing with more patrons, but there is an aesthetic question, I'm just asking people to think a little bit, is take a minute to envision what you're gonna get as you come over that hill. Right now, it kind of blends in, which may not be the best thing for business. But when you come over that hill, and then being another 7-8 feet taller, that peak, you're going to have something that's closer to what you have where the Dunkin' Donuts is at the other end of Black Rock, by that little, not the mini shopping center that's across from the ShopRite, you know, from the Super Stop and Shop, you know, the one that has like Subway and everything in it there, and the Pizza Post. That's a neat, kind of interesting way I agree with you that I like that kind of new attempt at New England architecture a little bit, like kind of making it look that way, but it is a bigger building, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing down at the Tungus Hill. This will be a larger looking building. You'll notice it more as you drive. So, I mean, it's just something we have to consider because it does add, again, it beefs up the commercial, you know, feel of that end of Black Rock. You know?
I mean,
Yeah, I don't
sorry.
My only concern is the sign on the second floor. I don't really have a concern with it aesthetically, but anything about setting a precedent about a sign on the second floor.
Well-
Definitely don't want that.
If I may.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
So the regulation actually says, in multiple story buildings, no sign shall be located above the ground floor level. You know, so I think that the first question is whether this is a multiple story building. And, you know, it's only then that you reach the question of whether it's above the ground floor level. And, I mean, I think that's the question that we have to answer.
Well, the thing that the chairman mentioned that I just want to, just to throw it back to you is this. Is this an architectural effort to get around that regulation? In other words, if you build a building that looks like 2 stories, so you can put something up on the second story, but inside it's an atrium, you know what I'm saying? In other words, you're getting around that reg. Why do we have the reg that multiple story buildings don't have signs on top? Maybe because we don't want them that high and things, we don't want that look. We want to have a relatively uniform look in certain areas. So that's what I think you're saying, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That's what I'm getting at.
That's
I mean,
what you're concerned
Look
with.
at some of our surrounding communities. Look at the Whole Foods in Darien, what they've done.
Right.
You can't have a large illuminated sign outside if you look off the highway. What they've done is made a huge glass atrium on a building and put a monstrous sign on the inside of it that you could see straight through the glass, advertising it from the highway. It's just a way one could start going around the regs if we're not careful. Just something to think about, you know, where we're going, that's all. Yes, Mr. Baker.
I do agree. I think it sets a bad precedent. I really like the design on the outside of the building, but I don't think that you should allow it to be raised 7 feet with a sign. I think the outside of the building will be beautiful. I think it sets a very bad precedent to allow it.
Commissioner Sutter?
Well, I'm not sure what precedent there is. The building is surrounded by a strip mall on one side and a gigantic mall on the other side. And in fact, the stores on the southern side of the building are taller, even than this proposed structure. If you look at the Hallmark Cards building and that whole series of very large facades in a row right next door. And then, of course, there's Old Navy and all the other stores further down the shopping center complex. So I don't think this is out of place. I really don't.
Any further discussion, thoughts, comments by any member of the commission?
Well, I'm not sure if what
What we're
we're
doing,
just voting on the application
on the-
itself.
on the
Are
app-
we
was
going
that-
to try to do anything with the sign differently, or are we just going to vote on the merits of the application as presented, or
If
we're
you're-
asking them to come back for a sign
Yeah,
plan?
We could have to come back with a sign plan and approve the, that's one
But
alternative.
wouldn't it look really weird with the Duchess sign down low at that height? I mean, I don't know, but it seems like there's going to be an awful lot of space that's empty there. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe they have to,
it may encourage the applicant to redesign that portion of the building. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just on the frontmost portion of the building. If you look at it from the side,
It's an outlook,
uh,
yeah.
you know, it may encourage the applicant to make that middle gable, you know, sit in the roof in between the, you know, the two dormers, and then put the sign, you know, a little bit lower.
so do we reject, like, with sort of without prejudice in the sense we want them to come back in toto, or do you want to approve with a request for a sign plan? Because then they may have to change everything altogether. If you're not comfortable with the height of the sign, and the big part of what they're doing architecturally is to get the sign up there, I'm just saying, that, you know, because I don't want to make them,
Right.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, at core, does it comply, I mean,
It does look like I'm sorry, it does look like they lifted up just to put a high sign.
right, that's
there,
what
you
I'm
know,
saying. In
what
the
my
end,
concern-
do
when I
we
look
feel
at
it
the sign-
complies with the spirit of the regulation or not? If we don't, we have to sort of vote no, because what we don't want is a sign near 20 feet above, at a second-story level, which we believe this is what it's doing. I mean,
It looks like that doesn't even go over the whole dining area where they put it on the front. It looks like it's just something.
It doesn't.
It
But 8
doesn't-
feet, it'd be
from the
12
front
feet,
it
12
looks
feet.
fine. From the
12 feet.
side, it looks like
3 and
someone added a
3,
peak
3
for a
and 3.
sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they, in some sense, added a second story.
For the place to put their sign.
And
right,
one looks
yeah,
like-
right.
One looks,
Yeah.
you know, a few stores up at the one where the Dailies is and the steakhouse on the corner, which is a single story. And it's got posters and adds a second floor to that like this.
Right, exactly.
You're getting into your residential neighborhood on Black Rock with a second story for signage.
Look, I mean, first off, it's commendable that in a difficult economy, this proprietor wants to do a nice job investing in their property. And I, for one, do not want to be negative in the face of that kind of willingness. On the other hand, I think, Mr. Chairman, you've made a really good point, which it appears that Richard and I, or Mr. Jacobs and I, were kind of winding to is, what are we uncomfortable with? What we're uncomfortable with is, it feels like a circumvention, and that's why I think maybe we have to go no here, with the hope that they can come back with something that's modern and really nice like this, but with the sign, as Commissioner Jacobson says, maybe it's more integrated into the roof area or something like that, so, I don't know, it seems like.
Is there any further discussion before we vote? I think the comments are pretty clear on the record. If anyone has any questions.
Could you repeat the motion that we're voting for?
The motion was to approve this compliant application for facade improvements as presented to this building. So hearing that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Suter in favor, opposed? Nay. Abstentions? Item fails 1-6-0. At this point, we will stand in adjournment until 8:15, so we can begin our public hearing. And for the members of the public, we have 4 items on public hearing: 160 Woodrow Avenue, 1233 South Pine Creek Road, 278 Meadow Street, and 1073 North Benson Road. We're working on that.
Well, somehow,
The meeting will come back to order.
didn't look too heavy to me anyway.
Again, this is the Town of Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission public hearing for January 10th, 2012. We have 4 items on public hearing tonight. The first is 160 Woodrow Avenue, request of Harbor Homes LLC for a 100% release of a $12,653 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in A B zone. Magic. Anyone here for this, the public? Is anyone here on 160 Woodrow Avenue, Harbor Homes LLC for a bond release? Hearing none, is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Also hearing none, public hearing is closed. 160 Woodrow Avenue. Next item, 1233 South Pine Creek Road, special exception application of 16 Holdings LLC pertaining to the construction of a single-family dwelling in a floodplain zone. Mr. Patrick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Ray, and Bologna. We have offices at 1150 Post Road. I'm here this evening representing 16 Holdings LLC, the principal of which is Bruce Gold, soon to Unite. The applicant here is the owner of a single-family building lot located at 1233 South Pine Creek Road, which is at the corner of Dunhill Drive and South Pine Creek. This property was formerly the site of a single-family home, which my client has demolished. The property is located in the floodplain district, contains 7,189 square feet. My client's intent is to construct a new single-family home. Your floodplain regulations include a number of rather unusual provisions. First of all, the floodplain district regs under section 23.7 of the zoning regulations require the application of R2 standards. The R2 zone includes, among other things, a minimum lot area requirement of 14,000 square feet. However, the lot here contains just over half that, 7,189 square feet. In addition, the floodplain district regulations under 23.6 require in these circumstances the submission of a special exception application to your commission in order to permit the construction of a single-family home. There is, to my knowledge, no other residential zone in the town of Fairfield which requires a special exception in order to construct a single-family home. I believe this is because the nature of the floodplain district, by definition a sensitive area, requires particular care. There's only one floodplain district in town, to the best of my knowledge, and that's located basically between Fairfield Beach Road on the south, South Pine Creek Road, which we're talking about here, on the west. A small area of the floodplain almost reaches Oldfield Road on the north, and then to the east by various streets, including Reef Road. As I read it, the intent of the section is to protect that marsh area. This is an area filled with phragmites, or cattails, punks as we used to call them, and certainly new construction in this area needs to be carefully monitored. However, this application is different. This application doesn't pertain to a virgin piece of property. This rather relates to an existing building lot. This property was formerly the location of a ranch-style single-family home constructed in 1935. So for 75 years, it's been used for a single-family home. It's surrounded on all sides by existing single-family homes. The home that was on the property was not FEMA compliant and had serious structural defects. As a result, the applicant removed the old structure and is looking to replace it with a new structure. The construction of a new home is completely consistent with the nature of the surrounding area, which, as I pointed out, is residential. The proposed new home, very importantly, will be FEMA compliant and will comply with the applicable R2 district zoning requirements. As a result, I think the Commission can see that the imposition of the special exception requirement in this instance is primarily technical in nature, and that the section is more designed to be applicable to new construction rather than to an existing single-family lot. You have in your file a set of the plans relative to the proposed new home. Home is relatively small, will contain less than 2,000 square feet of living area. It not only complies with the R2 requirements, again, which are applicable to a zone twice the size of the lot here, but cures 4 separate nonconformities that pertain to the prior house. For instance, the street setback to Dunhill Road, which is supposed to be 22 feet, was 4.7 feet for the old house. It will now be 22.5 feet and comply. The street setback to South Pine Creek, required to be 30 feet, was 18.8 feet. It will now be 30.5 feet and comply. The rear setback needs to be 30 feet. It was 24.1 feet. It will now be 31.7 feet and comply. And lastly, the coverage. Again, you're applying a coverage for a 14,000 square foot lot to a 7,000 square foot lot. In any case, the coverage requirement is 15% in the R2. There was 31.3 0.03% coverage on site. It's been reduced to 14.8. The proposed new home specifically satisfies both the required coverage and floor area requirements. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I have really not much more to offer. I think that the fact that this application should be approved is basically self-evident. The Commission has in the past approved an almost identical special exception application, demo of a house and construction of a new house in the floodplain zone, a short distance south of this site on the same side of South Pine Creek at 1271 South Pine Creek. For the reasons I've outlined and the fact that the application satisfies each and every requirement set forth in the zoning regulations, I urge the approval of this application. Mr. Gold, I pointed out, is here with me. He and I would be happy to answer any questions. My client is, as always, anxious to get going. Your speedy action would be appreciated. If the Commission, because of the odd special exception application for a home, has any questions, I would appreciate you putting them to me so that I can answer them if I can.
My understanding is your position as well. 23.7 requires you to comply with R2 zone standards, and one of which is a 14,000 minimum square foot lot. Because this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, therefore you're allowed to build a home that otherwise complies with the R2 zone requirements for setback, coverage, all that, on a 7,189 square foot.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. It's been a single-family lot since 1935.
Correct. And the minimum lot squares are non-conforming as well, but you're maintaining
Again,
the same
that has
minimum lot
existed
squares.
since 1935.
Pre-existing non-conforming. And you've taken the other non-conformities to an R2 zone existing, and you're now with the proposed building complying with all R2 requirements, despite the lot being 7,000 square feet versus 14. The only thing that is non-conforming is that which is pre-existing, the lot size itself.
And that is, by definition, legally non-conforming.
Correct. I just want to be clear for
Yes,
the record,
thank
that's
you.
what you're asking us to do. Any questions by any member of the Commission?
Yeah,
Commissioner
I do. Just in terms of the characterization of it, was this a winterized, fully
Yes,
functional, or
absolutely.
was it
Oh, no, it was a
summer
year-round house.
cottage?
No, it was a year-round house.
It was a year-round house. Thank you.
Any further questions by any member of the Commission? Hearing none, is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this item? Also
Thank you,
hearing none.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The hearing is now closed on 1233 South Pine Creek Road. The next item on our agenda, 278 Meadow Street, special permit application of 278 Meadow Street LLC for an office structure. Mr. Fallon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Good evening. Happy New Year. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I am here representing the applicant, 278 Meadow Street LLC, which is the owner of the property in question. The managing partner of that LLC is Mr. Jeremy Blum, who's here seated in the second row. Jeremy is a longtime and well-known businessman here in the town of Fairfield. He operated and has operated for many years two very prominent and long-time Fairfield businesses. One, Fairfield Stone and Landscaping Supply Company, and the other, Fairfield Pool Associates, known commonly as Fairfield Pool. Fairfield Landscaping currently operates at the existing property and utilizes the existing building that we've shown on the site plan for its showroom, its sales area, its office. It also has its clerical and certain areas of product storage located there. The hours of operation of that business are 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. This application seeks no changes whatsoever with regard to the operation of that business. As you probably know, traveling up and down Black Rock Turnpike, Mr. Blum has for many years operated Fairfield Pool from his location on Black Rock Turnpike. He wishes to relocate the office portion of the Fairfield Pool entity to the property at 278 Meadow Street, and that is the reason and subject to this application. This was a property that was included in your recent zone changes, so that it is currently zoned design commercial. The use, which is strictly an office use here, is a permitted use pursuant to section 12.4.3. They'll be located, those offices, in the new proposed structure that we've shown you. It's going to be used solely by Fairfield Pool as an office space for Mr. Blum and one other employee who will be there at some times and not at others. They'll manage the business from that location. They might occasionally meet with customers at that location to review proposals and what have you. The hours of operation at Fairfield Pool will be 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and seasonally on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The total square footage of the structure is small. It's 1,056 square feet, but it will certainly meet the needs of Fairfield Pool for their office space and occasional meeting with customers. We're providing, as required for such office use, and as shown on the plan, 5 parking spaces adjacent to the new structure, and myself and Mr. Blum would be pleased to answer any questions you might have with regard to the application.
The plans that this is a prefabricated structure, is that correct?
It is. It's a permanent structure, but it is prefabricated.
Do you have any discussions with the building department as to whether or not this kind of structure would comply with the town building code?
We did review this with the building department, and it will, provided, certain provisions are undertaken, but that would be the next step in the process, but yes.
Okay. So
It's a structure that, of its type, which is found in other areas of Fairfield, has been previously approved by the building department, but we'll make, subject to your approval, obviously, full application for permits to the building department.
Thank you.
Mr. Fallon, one thing we noticed is the parking. On your drawing, you have parking for the 5 spaces that are required pursuant to this application,
Correct.
but the drawing shows no parking spaces for the existing structure, the existing retail. I was curious if you can address that issue.
Well, we reviewed this with Mr. Nguyen, and the existing facility that is there, that has been used by the Fairfield landscaping for a long time, is basically what it is. It doesn't show any areas of designated parking, but obviously there's more than ample parking there. The total number of employees at Fairfield Stone at any given time never exceeds 4 or 5. So it was Mr. Went's judgment, which I concurred with, that what we needed to show you in this site plan was provision for compliant parking relative to the use that we seek to have you approve. The other use, the building that is where the other business, Fairfield Stone, has been there for many, many years. It's been through many, many owners, and Mr. Went thought, and I concurred, that what we needed to do here was show 5 designated spaces for the office use, and we did take some care and guidance from Mr. Went in terms of how those spaces were laid out in terms of compliance with the regulations.
I can comment. I didn't sit in with their discussion, but I think if you look at the site plan, there seems to be sufficient area for parking that would meet the requirement of the stone area. So, I mean, this is something that we would probably discuss at the executive session, but, we've had conditions in the past that, we approve it subject to them indicating on a site plan and ultimately on the site itself, designating the number of spaces, which would only be about probably 3 or 4 spaces.
Yeah, we can definitely do that as a condition of
That it be
approval.
done consistent with our Section 28 parking regulations.
Because the stone business is again, not a high generator. As I say, we have 4 or 5 employees at any given time, and it's basically used as office and for storage. And although we have a showroom area, it's very small, and it's not the kind of place where we get a lot of traffic.
Mr. Chairman, just so you understand, it's an existing non-conforming use now that we
Right.
changed the zone, but the parking requirement wasn't based on square footage
Correct.
for that use, it's based on the number of employees.
Number of employees, right. So this is not treated as a retail, then, say, despite.
It was an industrial.
We could probably handle that in executive, for just some condition that they maintain open spaces big enough to accommodate the parking.
And we can
Give some
even, as
flexibility.
Mr. Devanjik says, submit a revised site plan as part of the condition that would show
Show the
the
parking.
areas designated for parking for the employees at Fairfield Stone, because we know where they are, we know where those go.
Right, okay. Any further discussion, Commissioner Jacobs?
The parking spaces that you show 1 through 5, are they all 9 by 18?
They are. We took, Mr. Wendt and I took great care with Mr. Jane, who was here earlier, to do that. And Mr. Wendt also wanted them to be located as they are, so they wouldn't create any problems in terms of backing or ingress and egress.
Can you address what this dotted line that goes across one of the spots is? You work well.
Thank you. I don't know what that is.
It's a faint dotted line.
I wish Mr. Jane was here, but I do not know what it is. And it doesn't say what it is.
No, it doesn't.
I can certainly get you clarification of that through staff before your work session.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any, yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Sure, let's-
the office trailer, whatever you want to call it itself, is that going to be on some sort of foundation? You're
Yes.
saying You're not going to leave it on wheels?
No, it's a permanent structure, and that's part of what we discussed with the building
And the
department.
utilities can be tied into the existing building?
Correct. It is prefabricated, but it's not a trailer that we're just going to push around the site. It will be located. And
Any further discussion or questions by any member of the commission? Hearing none.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this application? Also hearing none, I will now close the hearing on 278 Meadow Street. Just one additional item remaining on public hearing, that being 1073 North Benson Road, application of Fairfield University for a special exception pertaining to addition to an existing recreational building, the Quick Rec Complex. Fallon.
Good evening again. For the record, I'm John Fallon. I'm pleased to be representing Fairfield University.
I think you dropped it. I think the microphone was disconnected from the TV. It fell off the... Oh, wait, you broke Mr. Devanchik's even worse.
Oh, no, it's the third to the eye.
Really easily fell over.
Something about this hearing is not starting off.
Should we go to a commercial break?
Yes. If the lights start to flicker, I'm leaving. Right, come on, this is my first trip back since rehab. Come on, go easy on me.
For the record, that's hip rehab?
Thank you very much.
Clarify, sir.
That is very important.
This is the Cheney.
TVs will be switching off and saying, "I told you about that guy." Let me start over. For the record, I'm John Fallon, and I'm pleased to be here representing Fairfield University. With me tonight from Fairfield University is Mr. David Krasnelli, Mr. Kurt Kuczynski. I'll also be introducing Lynn Denninger from Canon Design momentarily. As you know from looking at this, what we seek today is, through this application, your approval of a very exciting, from our standpoint, I hope yours, addition to the Quick Recreation Complex that's been located on the campus as shown on the plans for 33 years. Commonly known as the Recplex, it was built in 1978 and consists of 60,000 square feet. Many of you may have had occasion over those 33 years to be in the facility. The space is very important to Fairfield University and has been for these years, but it is very outdated and aging and does not meet the expectations of our existing and prospective students. I don't know how many of you have college-age students or have been through or are going through the college view, and if you haven't, it's a wonderful experience. But you're going to find there's a number of facilities on a campus in this highly competitive marketplace that we exist in for the very best students that really play an important role in students and parental decisions where they're going to matriculate. Library, other facilities, certainly the dormitories, but the recreational facilities on the campus. And the fact that they be, if you will, state-of-the-art and modern and provide the kind of recreational facilities and opportunities that the students have come to expect play a very important role. So This facility is important on a number of levels. One, it's important because of our commitment to student life and health and giving a full, well-rounded experience in education to the students of Fairfield University. But it's also very important because we do want to, and you've been very helpful, and we thank you, to maintain the highest quality of facilities generally on the campus, so that we can continue to attract the kind of students that we've been able to, and that have made Fairfield University such a successful university, benefiting it and I think the whole community. So, what are we proposing? Well, I'm going to let Lynn basically give you the overview, but it's basically a two-story of addition of approximately 11,000 square feet. And the additional space that, as Lynn will walk you through it, allows us to do those things that we think we need to do to bring the facility up to expectations. A state-of-the-art cardio fitness workout area, increased weight and fitness and stretching areas, a new jogging track, a new multi-purpose space area will be created. Also, we're going to do renovation. The existing locker room, if you've been in it, after 33 years, it needs renovation. We're going to improve the lobby entrance area by way of providing enhanced security and ambiance for students and faculty and guests. Our existing administrative offices will also be renovated, and at the end of the day, what we're going to end up with is, hopefully, we believe, a new, if you will, recplex that's going to have the proper components and updated and renovated space so that we can continue to provide the type of programs that our students expect and our future students desire. There's not going to be any expansion of programs or enrollment associated with this 11,000 square foot addition, the purpose of which is simply, as I said, to renovate and enhance this important but aging facility. So at this time, to give you a better, more detailed review of what we are proposing, I'd like to call on Lynn Denninger of Canon Design. She'll be presenting from certain boards, but she's been good enough to reduce those boards that she'll refer to more manageable packages for the commissioners. I won't have to screen to see what you saw. Get out of here.
Good evening, everyone. As John said, my name is Lynn Denninger. I'm with Canon Design. Hopefully, I'm going to walk you through this approximately in the same layout that you have in your packets. Can everyone see this okay? So, as John mentioned, we're working with the Leslie C. Quick Recplex. What you'll see here is the before condition and the after condition, the renovated condition. So what we're seeking to do is add the approximate 11,000 plus square foot to the front of the building. This allows us not only to provide the programming space that John referenced, but also to enhance not only views to the building from outside of campus, but also views from in the building to the rest of campus, which you'll see in some of the renderings at the back of your package. When we do this renovation, we'll be providing and maintaining access from the existing facility here through a renovated new pedestrian pathway and providing two-code ADA accessible parking on the site, as well as adding some additional landscaping at the front facade of the building. Specific to the program, as John mentioned, we are doing renovations on the ground floor, the entry floor, and adding an addition on the upper floor. At the ground floor, there is an existing multi-purpose room that we are renovating, And then we are adding a second multipurpose room so that there's enough to do multiple programs there for the number of students on campus. We're also going to be renovating the men's and women's locker rooms to create more equity between the two locker rooms, as well as bring them up to a more aesthetically pleasing space for the students. On the second floor, which is not really a second floor, but the entry floor, what you'll see here is we're creating a new entry lobby and a security desk so that students that come in to use the fitness have some sense of security, that they're in a space where they can move fairly easily between the fitness and the multipurpose spaces. We are renovating existing space here into a stretching and weight room and providing some fitness and weights here at the front of the building. At the back of house here, we're taking some existing administrative office space and renovating that so there's room for students to be welcomed into the office space and get feedback from the rec facility administration, and also renovating some existing bathrooms. What you'll see here is the existing gym, which we are doing some finish upgrades in, lighting and mechanicals, as well as adding a jogging track on the upper floor. Also on the upper floor is this brand new space here, which is a complete addition to the existing facility, which will house the rest of the cardio fitness equipment.
So you're putting the jogging track within the existing shell field house?
Correct. It is suspended, yes. What we're hoping to do with that, but I'm not sure you'll see it in this particular, but you'll see here where this little sort of reddish part in here, that's where we're actually sort of breaking through into the existing gym so that students and faculty staff, as they're jogging on the track, will actually be able to see out from the jogging track out to campus. So the two images that I brought with me today, one is sort of a night shot if you're standing on campus looking back towards this addition of the recplex, and this is more a student-focused entry where students will enter in underneath the fitness area and into the new entry to the beginning of the addition.
Are you proposing to wrap, that's all glass, I assume, at the top here. Are you wrapping that completely around the field house portion, or is it just
No.
going on the main?
It's only on the main, it's only on the main portion of the addition, and then what we're doing is on the field house, in the gymnasium, we're just poking a couple windows on the edges of the corner of the gymnasium, so as students run around the track, there's opportunities for natural light and views on the corners of the track as they run. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Below.
How large is the cardio space that you're recommending?
Andre?
How large is the cardio space? Thank you.
Andre Vega is the project architect, and he's got all the finer details.
Andre, how large is the cardio space proposed to the addition on top of the second deck?
Oh,
Roughly.
Don't tell me you don't know that.
the cardio space.
I was going to say 6,000.
6 or 7.
That's fine.
Yeah. I think it's
6,492.
And then there's an additional 1,600 where we combine the existing flush.
Right.
Cafeteria.
Multi-purpose.
Stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm building one.
Any questions? Commissioner
Just
Parker?
one. How many people can safely run on the track at one time in terms of vibration and that sort of thing?
Wow.
You know, the crown
You mean weight-wise or
collapse of the
space-wise?
suspended bridges?
You're talking about weight-wise, Commissioner Parker?
Weight-wise.
Yeah.
An impact.
I'm not sure I could answer that off the top of my head.
It's a 3-lane track.
It's a 3-lane track, and
How many can you have on there?
We didn't bring our structural engineer, but I can assure you.
well, no, we're,
What's the
Safe.
line load, 120?
I can assure you that
It'll meet the code.
It'll meet the code.
it's been designed to meet the code, and indeed, we did have a code enforcement meeting and review on this, but we didn't bring the structural engineer, but I can assure you, it meets all stress components.
We can always make that a condition of an approval, that perhaps they have that reviewed a second time with engineering. Since it's the kind of a facility, you may have more than runners, you can have spectators if something's going on in the field house that would have more weight.
Well, they had the
static
big
weight.
accident at the Crown Center where, because a group started bouncing and dancing on a suspended
That's a fatigue issue.
bridge, it collapsed.
We can always,
What you could request right now, as well, the hearing is open, is that they submit whatever engineering dimensions you have for that to us and the engineering department so that we can have a report for you.
and maybe if you could have your structural engineer submit sufficient information to our commission so we could forward it to the town's engineering department to confirm that the proposed suspended track is of sufficient strength
Wait, I'm
and
gonna-
flexions to prevent an accident.
Lynn was
Okay,
going
so I'm
to,
just going to
That's a different plan the buildings
clarify.
we're doing.
When you say is it suspended, it's on the existing structure, but there's additional
So it's
steel.
cantilevered?
It's a cantilevered structure that, there's actually structure that
Under
comes
it.
off the existing structure that goes.
So it's more
down.
like a
There's
balcony,
So
almost?
it's
It's
not-
like a
more
giant, like a balcony.
It's not hanging on hung
Okay.
suspension, no.
Right.
I think it's a good question, because this building was never built to have such a structure. It was built as a field house shell.
so you're just requesting that we would provide to staff a letter or something from the structural engineer?
Sufficient information from your structural engineer so that the town engineering department could adequately evaluate the strength of what you're proposing to
That's fine.
handle any
But that's in the
possibly
structural
foreseeable loads.
That's in your structural submissions.
Yeah,
You gotta have it anyway.
you must have the structural drawings done. If you don't, yeah, if we can have your structural drawings.
No, we've done that.
And any, yeah.
I could just get a confirmation from the engineering department.
Do we have the structurals? Have they been submitted, all the structural
It's not problem.
submittals?
Prior to,
Narrative and drawings.
they've been submitted.
We'll
They've-
submit,
they've been- If they haven't been, if you could submit the structural drawings.
we'll submit those to Mr. Devoncheck and the engineering department.
'Cause I know they've got a building, but they may not have been.
Right, and so then you'll have them before your work
You
session.
may have the information, but we'll have the engineering.
It's okay. To review the engineer.
That's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fine. Any other questions before I summarize?
Commissioner Jacobs?
Just a comment. Over the 6 years that I've been on here, the quality of the presentations from Fairfield U have gotten better and better and better. They're very impressive now, and 7 years ago, they weren't. So it's very nice to see the level of professionalism in the presentations very, come a long way and really are beautiful presentations now.
Thank you. I think that's a credit to the staff led by Mr. Frasnelli and Kurt, and so we appreciate that. From my perspective, I came there in 1967, and I want to go back in a time machine because you talk about the quality of the presentations. Well, I look at this stuff and I say, what did I do wrong? But clearly, it is important because I think the reason that Fairfield University has gained the stature and reputation it has is partially due to the fact that although the emphasis is obviously on the academics, we try to make sure the facilities meet those standards as well. I did want to say, and I'm not going to read it all, but in the narrative, which I know you diligently read, as with the many proposals that we've had the recent pleasure to bring before you, the university, again, I think is showing in this particular proposal our commitment to creating sustainable environments on our campus. The sustainable features that this project is relevant to are very wide-ranging, and I detailed them in the narrative. I won't read them, but we're very happy about that. And as I said, a lot of these approaches that I detail here are going to reduce potable water use, minimize heat loss from the building, and also minimize energy consumption. So we are acting consistently with that commitment that we've made ourselves and our constituency and this commission. So in summary, the rec complex is in need of the upgrade. It's a very important facility for us, but after 33 years, we want to bring it up to the standards that we expect from our facilities. We will, with your permission, do that, and we'll ensure that that facility was going to provide sufficient space and amenities to provide for the programs that will continue to meet the needs of our existing students and attract and impress our future students. So we thank you very much for your consideration. We'll get you that information on the structural component of the track, and we thank you for your attention.
John, just one, 2 follow-up questions.
Mhm.
You can confirm that this is not going to increase the enrollment at the university at
Correct.
all, based upon the nature of it? And number 2, this will not be able to be seen off of the campus, even
No,
at
this is-
existing elevations, because it's low enough where it's
This is
located.
another one of these facilities right in the center of the donut, so it really, it's an attractive facility, and it probably wouldn't be bad if it had a presence, but it doesn't. We'll have a nice presence on the campus, though, as you come down the main road.
Is there any further questions by any member of the commission? Hearing none, thank you. We'll now go to public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this application? Hearing none? You conclude, Mr. Fallon?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This hearing is closed, and there being no further business on our agenda, this meeting will stand in adjournment. Thank you.
My only